So the what and why come together, and that's where the truth is. And it tells us, and religion keeps us, that there is a plan, that there is meaning, and that there's value to life. There's value to us, there's value to the universe. And again, Pope Benedict. Pope Benedict is saying, and he tells us what this also says, that we're just not material things. We're just not made up of creatures or critters. That there, again, God's part of our lives, that there's a spiritual part, there's this invisible part to this whole of reality. So now, oops, I went too far. I can't get back too easily, so we're going to hold on. Okay, well, I'm going to talk a little bit some Catholics as scientists. Now, one of the first ones, famous ones, Brother Gregor Mendel. Have we all heard of Brother Gregor Mendel? Raise your hands. Since some of you are teachers, right? You got to get this. Okay. Right. So Brother Gregor Mendel lived from 1822 to 1864, and he's the one. He's an Augustinian monk, and using peas, the little vegetable, he described how traits were passed down. So he became really the father of genetics. Now, apparently, the story is he wanted to use mice to do this, but his bishop was like, I'm a little uncomfortable with you using mice having sex. So he told him, you can't do that. So he switched to pigs. I know. Those bishops, not our bishop. But, so here's this Augustinian monk who did science and really set off really a chain of thinking in genetics and what genetics and DNA eventually will all become. Now, later his works were kind of, okay, his science probably wasn't that great, but it didn't matter. He was doing the science. He was beginning the first work. Another great scientist, someone, is Father Teilhard de Chardin, who's up here, and he lived from 1881 to 1955. He was a Jesuit priest, and he was also a paleontologist, or a geologist who studied fossils. Okay. Now, he too probably wasn't the best of scientists, but what he did is he was exploring around. He was involved in the discovery of Peking man and early hominids. And so he was doing that science. But what he was doing as well is through his study of fossils and through his study of geology, he was seeing a deeper connection between the things of the universe. That he was seeing a greater unity amongst all of the universe. And so he began to see a purpose to the universe. And began to use then science. He used science language to really provide new metaphors, new symbols in his writings as spirituality. So his big thing was omega. We're moving to omega point. That, again, there's a purpose to the universe. We're moving to an end point. And that end point is that union with Christ and with God and all. So he's a very interesting man to study. Another famous man is Father Georges Lemaitre, and he was born in 1884, died in 1966. He too was Jesuit trained, but he was not a Jesuit himself. He was a priest. He initially studied engineering. Then after World War I, he moved to physics and mathematics. And so when Einstein's theories were coming out, he looked into Einstein's theories, was working with them, and he began to understand Einstein's ways in a different way. And he saw an expanding universe. They saw an expanding universe, and he began to say, well, if it expanded, it must have started from something smaller. And he's the man, this Catholic priest, that came up with the idea of the Big Bang Theory. He's the one who devised this. In fact, he even corrected some of Einstein's mathematics. So, and I love this caption. So tell me again how Catholics are scientifically backwards when you have a Catholic priest correcting man. See? There's nothing wrong. So, a brilliant man. And he's talked about, and you can Google him and find works about him. He's known in the circles. Now, on a more contemporary level, we have Brother Guy Consolmagno. He's a Jesuit. He's an American. He is the head of the Vatican astronomy, Vatican laboratory, telescope. I don't know if you know, the Vatican actually owns telescopes, and they study the stars and meteors. He's actually a meteorite expert. And he has he's published many books. His latest book with one of his friends is called Would You Baptize an Extraterrestrial? His basic answer is only if they want it. Because baptism must be a choice. It can't be forced on. So he wrote in 2006 that religion needs science to keep it away from superstition and to keep it closer to reality, apart from creationism, which in the end of the day is kind of a paganism, meaning that we just don't make God into a God of nature, that God is this tree, God is this. We have to avoid that. So he's up there studying meteors. He's writing really good books. Now, to be honest, his book writing, it's a little dry sometimes, but he's fun to listen to. He's on podcasts and stuff. He's a great person just listen to. He's got a great sense of humor. He's from the East Coast. Another very, very interesting person, I like her a lot, is Sister Elia. I lost my word. Hold on a second. Sister Elia Delio. And she is a Franciscan sister. She's at Villanova. She teaches there. And she has written a number of books on spirituality, but also on the interaction between spirituality and science, especially like quantum mechanics. She's writing really about how the two describe some of the same reality, and she uses metaphors. And one of her more brilliant books that I loved, it actually had nothing to do with science, it was called 10 Evenings with God. It's a short little book. You can read one chapter at a time. Beautiful retreat thing like that. She was here about a year and a half ago. Carmelite sisters brought her up, and she did a talk with them. So she's a fascinating woman. She has a website called www.omegacenter.info. So that's her website. When she posts things, and she does some podcasts and some other material. So you can look at hers. Another priest is Father Robert Spitzer, another Jesuit. He's a philosopher educator. He was former president of Gonzaga. Did I say that correctly? It's not Gonzaga, apparently. It's Gonzaga. Like Nevada. Okay? So he's also written many books on spirituality, on science. He has his own website as well. President of the Lemaitre Center of Reason and Faith. So he writes and has his issues as well as there. And so he has good stuff. And then there's another, I didn't put him up here. The Slaters are here. Father Jim Polkinghorne is an Anglican priest. And he also writes, he's a physicist, and he writes from his perspective as well. And he's a brilliant man as well. Now there's some other, I'll go down for this one. There's some other resources out on the web as well. One of my favorite things to follow is called Catholic Lab on Twitter. And they publish every day little things that happen in science that have a Catholic connection, like a scientist when he's born, when he died, when he came up with things in there. So that's a great resource. So you can see some of the things they do on there. And provides just these little connections that says, yeah, we've always been involved in science. There's no problem. As well, another one, science and belief. And again, it's more of this interaction, how these two aspects come together. They post videos. I don't have an internet connection, so I don't want to run this video. But you see this person, this scientist, talking about. She says, when you learn about the smallest nanoparticle or largest telescopic view of the galaxies, God is so much bigger than the small little box that we try to put him into. Again, that's an ego. We try to make God in our own image, and that's where the conflicts arise. So there's another great resource. So I want to kind of wrap this up because we're running out of time. In another brilliant book, it's called Disarming Beauty by Julian Caron. He talks about, at the very end, he's a teacher, and he's talking about kids, and he's from Italy, actually, and he's talking about, he says, what we've moved to in our society, he's not talking America, he's talking the whole world, the Western culture, is that we're making our kids nihilists, or nihilists, however you want to pronounce it, is that the kids are becoming bored. They don't see any beauty to our world. They don't see any mystery to our reality. It's just what it is. So it's not important, so why should I be enthused about reality? And so he says, that's dangerous. We're hurting our kids. And so we have to educate our kids into the beauty, the mystery of the universe. To show them that there is this deep meaning, there is this great beauty to this, that there's wonderful things to this. And Pope Francis, talking to educators, reminds educators that teachers, he says, and all of us, not just teachers, classic teachers, but all of us, we have to show our kids it's just not compartmentalized, it's not one thing or the other, that there is this natural unity to all. And we have to let our kids see this in ourselves and know that this can be talked about and wrestled with. We have to let our kids know it's okay to be fascinated, curious, and wonder. That there's not going to be any, they're not going to offend God. They're not going to offend the church. They're not going to offend the Pope. We have to teach these kids, we have to teach these things to our kids, both in religion and in science. And I used to have this up on my Facebook page. Again, another person, scientist, talking about this God, that science just makes the person just more off-field with God. So that's the end of my talk. Do I have any questions? Let me get back up here and get some water.
You need to take your jacket off. You're making me hot.
Oh, I'm sweating up here.
I know. Why don't you take your jacket off? It's cooler.
I'm suffering for God.
Okay. Sister Elia's website again.
Let me look at that. It's Omega Center. Or you can just Google her.
Yes. Okay.
That's all I always tell people.
Oh.
Google her.
Okay.
Or Bing her, or whatever you want to do about her. I'm a Google person.
Thank you.
Way back?
Where did the material for the Big Bang Theory come from?
The material. What do you
Because
mean?
you said it was an expanding universe, so if we are ever expanding, it had to go back to something very, very small.
Well, one of the precepts of science is that matter is neither created nor destroyed, so it must have been all at one particular point, incredibly dense singularity is the current thinking. And then it all expanded from that.
Did God create that?
Scientists can't go before it. Scientists can't go beyond that. Now, Catholics, would we say that God created that? Well, then that gets dangerous because now it's God in the gap. But we always say that, was God present at the Big Bang? Sure. Did God initiate it? Sure. Was it God? Anything else? So teach your kids. It's okay to teach them about evolution, about science. Embrace it because it's wonderful. Let them be off. There's another. I got 2 minutes. So another Jesuit. Boy, these Jesuits are everywhere, aren't they? Another Jesuit psychotherapist, a therapist, said we need to take off-field breaks every day. Throughout the day, we need to stop for about 5 minutes and just be awestruck by something. Whether it's the flower, the rain, the clouds, the moon, or whatever, the new carpet here. Go be off-field, because then that creates us a sense that there's more there. Okay? Thank you all.